There's no sugarcoating it, Steelers Nation. Left tackle Broderick Jones was pretty darn bad versus the New York Jets in the season opener in Week 1 for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And if he doesn't improve, Pittsburgh's going to need to find a better option at some point before the Steelers potentially approach the NFL playoffs here in 2025. Because plain and simply, guys, you can't go into the playoffs and go up against the Chiefs and go up against the Ravens and go up against the Bills and all the top teams in the AFC this year and expect to win with left tackle play like that. So today we're going to be talking about some potential Broderick Jones replacements that the team can consider over the next few weeks. Now, I want to make abundantly clear, I don't expect them to make any of these types of big decisions this week or even next week. I do think that, we're probably going to have to suffer through maybe a couple more weeks of poor Broderick Jones play before they eventually have to make this decision. Remember, it is a former first-round pick here, so they need to be absolutely sure that he is absolutely toast before they decide to move off of him at this position. But if we get close to the trade deadline here and Broderick still isn't playing well, in fact, he's given up 3 sacks a game like he did last week versus the New York Jets, something needs to change at left tackle, and today we're going to talk about some of those potential options. Now, before we get into the content today, guys, predict it for me down there in the comment section. Will Broderick Jones remain the starting left tackle for the Pittsburgh Steelers all the way through the rest of the 2025 season? Give me a yes or no down there in the comment section to kick us off. So the first replacement option that the Steelers have at their disposal if they want to move off of Broderick Jones is go to somebody that's already in-house. And I think there's 3 potential options that they could choose from in terms of guys that are already in the Steelers building. The first option is Calvin Anderson. They gave him a decent contract, $4 million over 2 years to be this team's swing tackle. So they certainly have some level of belief in him where if somebody goes down with an injury that he can come in and he can play at a starter caliber level. He's been a really decent swing tackle in this league for many years. He played a little bit for the Steelers last year, played just fine. So he would probably be the number one in-house option. But another one that could make sense too is Andrus Peat. Pete's played at left tackle throughout his career at some points, and he's played more guard than tackle, but he can certainly play tackle. And I thought he actually played very well during the preseason games this year. He looked like a pro out there. So if you wanted to go with somebody here with some starter experience, somebody that could maybe be a Band-Aid for this season if Broderick Jones just completely stinks, Andrus Peat is another one that I would really consider if I'm the Pittsburgh Steelers. And then some people have thrown this out there, Darnell Washington. Now, I think Darnell gives this team a big competitive advantage as a tight end because for someone that's as big as he is and athletic as he is and how good he is at catching, to be as good as a blocker as he is as well at his size, have that guy be a tight end and pretty much a 6th offensive lineman gives this team a huge advantage versus just having 5 offensive linemen in the run blocking scheme. So I do think that this is kind of a last case scenario for the Pittsburgh Steelers, all right? If you do not believe in Andrus Peat, if you do not believe in Calvin Anderson, you do not believe in Broderick Jones, and there's nobody else out there on the open market that you can get for the price that you would want them at, then maybe you can think about Darnell Washington because he is legitimately a good blocker. He has stonewalled guys like TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and more during Steelers training camp during the one-on-ones, all these different things. And, he certainly has the size to be an offensive tackle at the National Football League level, but he's never really practiced there. I feel like if he was asked to go one-on-one against some of the league's best pass rushers like Myles Garrett, he could get embarrassed, and then you don't get the benefit of him being a pass catcher as a tight end in the red zone. So I really don't want Darnell Washington to move to left tackle, but at the end of the day, guys, if he's the best option, he's the best blocker on this football team to be the left tackle for this team to protect Aaron Rodgers once we eventually get to the postseason, then he's the best option, all right? So I'm all for finding the best option at this position because it is such a crucial position for the Steelers season this year. But let's be completely honest here, guys. You're probably here to hear about outside options. So coming up after this, a little sponsor break here, I'm going to be talking about free agency, practice squad, and then trade options for the Pittsburgh Steelers if they want to replace Broderick Jones. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, let's have a word from our sponsor today at Ethos. And the summer before I started here at Chat Sports, guys, my family unfortunately lost my late grandfather. And as you tend to do when you lose someone close to you, you begin to think about your own mortality and what would happen to the people dependent on you if something were to happen. With today's sponsor, Ethos, your family is protected. Cassie and I are getting married soon. Shortly after that, I imagine we'll buy a house and start having some kids shortly after that. If something were to happen to me, I want the last thing the people I love to worry about is being able to pay the bills, so I trust Ethos to keep them protected. Ethos is an online platform that makes getting life insurance fast and easy to protect your family's future in minutes, not months. There's no complicated process, and it's 100% online. There's no medical exam required, and you just answer a few health questions to get a quote in as little as 10 minutes. Protect your family with life insurance from Ethos today. Get your free quote at ethos.com/NFL Daily. That's ethos.com/NFL Daily to get your free quote today. So the second replacement option for the Steelers if they want to move off of Broderick Jones is free agency and then potentially poaching somebody off of somebody's practice squad, all right? So the first free agent option that I would present to you guys is Isaiah Wynn. Wynn has not played tackle in a little while. He's been mostly playing guard for the Miami Dolphins the last couple of years. He hasn't played left tackle at a full-time level since 2021, all right? So that is quite a while there to not have experience at left tackle and all of a sudden to be signed and then put there. I just don't know if this is an option that I would personally want to go out and get. He's a bigger name, a former high draft pick, so I get why some people would bring his name up. But personally, I would rather play Andrus Peat before I would sign and then play Isaiah Wynn at left tackle over him. I thought Peat showed some really good things at offensive tackle during the preseason. Obviously, he's been in the building and understands the offense a little bit more than what Isaiah Wynn would have to would be coming in cold off the couch. So I would personally rather go with the in-house options than bringing in a guy like Isaiah Wynn, who hasn't played this position since 2021. Another free agency option that hasn't played in quite a while, but does have a connection to Aaron Rodgers is David Bakhtiari, former All-Pro left tackle for the Green Bay Packers, formerly one of the best left tackles in football. Apparently still wants to play and is still looking for work, but A, he can never stay healthy, and B, he hasn't played in multiple years, so we don't know how well he would play if he were to be signed. But he is very close with Aaron Rodgers. They had a great working relationship there in Green Bay. I personally probably wouldn't go down this alley either, though, guys, but because of his connection to Rodgers, I can't completely rule it out at this point. And then the third free agency / practice squad option here, ladies and gentlemen, is Dan Skipper from the Detroit Lions. He's on their practice squad right now, and, you could poach him right now. Skipper's been somebody that's been a starter in this league for a long time. He's a little bit older, but he was a starting player for that Detroit Lions team as early as last year. So I do think that Skipper is somebody that if you wanted to poach him and you wanted to kind of get a Band-Aid option at offensive tackle in terms of the practice squad guys that are available, he's probably the number one option that I would recommend to the Pittsburgh Steelers. So coming up next here on the show, possible trade targets. I got 8 potential offensive tackle trade targets that the Pittsburgh Steelers can consider targeting before the NFL trade deadline this year if they want to go out and get a starting left tackle. But before we get into the rest of today's show, guys, go ahead and click that subscribe button if you enjoy our in-depth Steelers coverage on this channel. We try to give you guys the best damn Steelers content money can buy, all 100% free. We usually put out 2 daily Steelers videos up on this channel, breaking news coverage every time the Steelers make a big move. We put out a breaking news video just this week when Jabril Peppers signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers. We go live twice a week at least, and then we go live during every single Steelers game for our live watch parties. And again, guys, it's all 100% free. So if you guys want to join the largest Steelers fan community anywhere on YouTube and help us get closer to 100,000 subscribers here on Steelers Talk, click that subscribe button right now. So before we get into the trade options here, guys, the thing that you need to know about trading for offensive tackles in the National Football League, especially mid-season, is that it's usually very tough because even if teams have extra offensive tackles on their team as like swing options, that sort of stuff, if they're a good football team and they're under contract for multiple seasons, they usually don't want to let them go because, injuries happen all the time in the National Football League and you want to have good depth along the offensive line. So if you have good offensive linemen, you usually don't want to trade them away unless you're a really bad football team and you have an option behind them that they really like, and they're probably on the final year of their contracts. But I do have 8 options that could be possibilities by the time we get to the trade deadline. And we'll start with Braxton Jones here, another Jones that could be the potential franchise left tackle of the Pittsburgh Steelers here. And Jones is in kind of a tumultuous situation there with Chicago. He's still very young, 26 years old. If the Steelers trade for him, he could absolutely be here for multiple seasons. And the Bears drafted an offensive tackle in the second round this year, Ozzie Trapilo. He appears to be the future of that position. Braxton is currently on the final year of his contract. And if you guys watched that Bears team on Monday Night Football last week against the Vikings, that is not a good football team right now, guys, all right? And maybe they get better as the season goes on, but to my eye, that looks like a team that could be selling by the trade deadline. And Braxton Jones is somebody that I think has actually played pretty darn well. If you look at his PFF grading throughout the last 3 years, he's been one of the higher graded offensive tackles in football. Now, he's not the most, he's not the best left tackle in the world. If he goes up against elite talent, he can be embarrassed. But Braxton Jones, man, over the last 3 years, you take a look at his PFF grading, 19th in his rookie season there in 2022 out of 81 NFL offensive tackles. In the following year, the grade dipped a little bit, but was still in the top 22. And then last year, the grade went back up to 77.4, which still ranked 22nd in the league. So this is still somebody that you can argue is a top 25 tackle in football that could very realistically be on the trade block here before the deadline. And if I'm the Steelers and Broderick Jones is stinking it up, I would personally give Chicago a call. They've done business in the past multiple times. Ryan Poles and Omar Khan, they know each other well. I think that this is something that is fairly realistic for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But if they can't get something done for Jones, Rasheed Walker is another guy from the same division here, the NFC North, that I think could be available by the trade deadline. Right now, Walker is the starting left tackle for the Green Bay Packers. You guys will see him tonight on Thursday Night Football as the Packers take on the Washington Commanders. But Walker's also very young, 25 years old. And then the Packers drafted a first-round offensive lineman last year in Jordan Morgan out of Arizona, who appears to be the future at the left tackle position for them. And Walker is currently in the final year of his deal with the Packers. So if they feel good enough about Morgan, who apparently had a really good preseason and training camp for them, and the Steelers come knocking on their door with a good enough offer for Rasheed Walker, I think that's absolutely something that is possible if the Pittsburgh Steelers are desperate to get another starting caliber left tackle. Another name to consider here is Jawaan Taylor from the Kansas City Chiefs. Now, Taylor, not my favorite right tackle in the league. He's certainly not the highest graded guy in the league. He's highly penalized. He doesn't have the best technique in the world, but he's a Super Bowl champion. He's been a starter on Super Bowl winning teams. He's very athletically gifted. He's a former high draft pick, a high second rounder. Still only 27 years old. He's still got 2 years left on his deal with Kansas City. So if you trade for him, you do get him for not only this season, but next year as well. And with the Kansas City Chiefs bringing in Jalen Moore in free agency this year, they could be open to trading Jawaan Taylor before the trade deadline this year. But because Taylor is pretty much a right tackle at this point in his career, if they trade for him, I do think that the Pittsburgh Steelers would probably need to move Troy Fautanu, who played his college ball at left tackle, back over to the left side, which might not be the most ideal setup there. You would like to keep these guys on one side and let them develop on one side, but we know Fautanu can play well on the left side, so if you trade for Jawaan Taylor, I do think Fautanu could make a good left tackle. Then you get to Cam Robinson, who was actually traded from Jacksonville to the Minnesota Vikings at the trade deadline last year. He's currently with the Houston Texans, signed there in free agency. He's currently starting for them at left tackle. But similar to some of these other teams that we're talking about here, the Texans have invested at that offensive tackle position in the draft. They drafted Ariante Ursary from the Minnesota Golden Gophers in this year's draft. He's apparently had a really good training camp in preseason. And then Titus Howard, in my opinion, is a much better tackle than he's a guard, and I think eventually they're going to figure that out. So with Cam Robinson, he's 30 years old. He's somebody that's traveled around the National Football League. He was a trade piece last year. Was a very solid left tackle for the Minnesota Vikings down the stretch last season when Christian Darrisaw went down with his injury. So could the Steelers do the same thing? I mean, it was successful for Minnesota at least until those final 2 games. It could certainly be a strategy that the Steelers utilize this year as well. Then you get to Jermaine Illuminor from the New York Giants, and you're catching on to a theme here. Illuminor is on the final year year of his contract there with the G-Men. And if you guys watch that Giants team last week versus the Washington Commanders, like they're not going anywhere, right? And I don't know if Illuminor is the type of guy where they want to give an extension to or anything like that. And, I just feel like Jermaine is probably somebody that could be traded by the trade deadline. He has experience playing both left and right tackle, so the Steelers could maybe make a determination there of where he would want to play. He currently plays right tackle, though, just so you guys know that. But Illuminor is somebody that's been a long-time starter in the National Football League. If he's made available, you gotta consider him a legitimate option for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you get to Braden Smith from the Indianapolis Colts, and Smith has been one of the best offensive linemen, and maybe the most underrated offensive lineman in the National Football League for many years now. He's getting older, all right, 29 years old, but, in my opinion, one of the most underrated offensive linemen in all of football for many seasons on here. He's a part of some of those really good offensive lines in years past there in Indianapolis. It's still a pretty darn good offensive line. He's currently in the final year of his deal with the Colts, and with him getting older, maybe they're going to be starting a rebuild with a new quarterback here, maybe starting as soon as next year. We'll see how Daniel Jones plays this season under Shane Steichen, but maybe that organization feels like they would want to move on. Maybe they feel good about the offensive tackles they have behind him in that building. But, the Steelers would be very, very lucky to get Braden Smith if he's made available. He might be their best-case scenario here, guys, because you take a look at his PFF grading, very, very good, all right? Before last season where he had a 65.7 grade, that's okay, that's not great. He was one of the best and highest-graded offensive linemen in all of football. And as early as 2023, he was a top 5 graded tackle in all the game. Now, he's another guy that's played right tackle, so Fautano would probably have to move over to the left side. But if the Steelers decide to make this move, I do think Fautano can move back over to the left side, and Smith would provide a lot of stability on the right. And then the final two names here on my trade candidates list here is DJ Humphries and then Andrew Wiley. All right, these two guys are very good veterans. Both of them are swing tackles at this point in their careers. Wiley has played guard and tackle, but he's spent the last several seasons in Washington as their starting right tackle. DJ Humphries can play both left and right. He plays in a system that requires him to block a lot in terms of wide zone running scheme there with Sean McVay and the Los Angeles Rams. So I could certainly see those guys being options as well, even though they are not starters at this point in time. So who's your guy? Let me know down there in the comment section. Which left tackle would you like the Pittsburgh Steelers to get if they are replacing Broderick Jones this year? Would you like them to go with an in-house option? Do you want them to turn to Darnell Washington? Do you want them to go out and get somebody like a Jermaine Illuminor or a Braden Smith or a Braxton Jones? Let me know the name that you would prefer down there in the comment section. If you made it to the end of today's show, guys, that makes you a real one, and we want to show some love to the real ones down there in the comment section. So go down there, type Real One in all caps if you guys want to get some love from us here at Steelers Talk and you made it to the end of today's show. Make sure you click that subscribe button if you haven't already. We really appreciate your guys' support, making it to the end of the video, liking the video, subscribing to the channel, all that great stuff. We will see you guys tomorrow. Until next time, guys, here we go, Steelers.